So let's talk about Karachi. You're looking at Pakistan's biggest city, a massive, sprawling metropolis with millions and millions of people. And for decades, it's been a city run not by the government, but by a whole web of shifting powers. It's always begged the question, who is really in charge here? Is it the gangsters, the political parties, or the state itself? And that quote, it just hits the nail on the head. For years, you could just forget about courtrooms and judges. The real deals, the real justice, the big decisions, all of that was hammered out in back alleys and on the main roads. The law wasn't written in some dusty old book. It was enforced by whoever had the most firepower. Power belonged to those who were strong enough to write their own rules.
Okay, so to understand how things got this wild, we have to go back. Back to Karachi's oldest neighborhood, Lyari. Now, Lyari was once famous for its boxers and football players, but a totally different kind of fight was brewing in its streets, a fight for control. And the guy who pretty much laid the foundation for Lyari's criminal empire was its first real kingpin, Rehman Dacoit.
Rehman's story is like something out of a movie. He was practically born into this life. I mean, his family was smuggling drugs way back in the 60s. By the time he was 13, he was already committing major violent acts. His power really peaked in 2001 when he formed this thing called the People's Aman Committee. Sounds nice, right? Aman means peace, but it was just a cover, a way to hide his criminal network until he was eventually killed by police in 2009.
In Lyari, he was the guy, the undisputed boss. His whole empire was built on drugs, weapons, and bata. That's extortion money. But here's where it gets complicated. To some of the locals, he was actually a hero, a kind of Robin Hood figure who would solve their problems when no one else would. But to everyone else, he was just a gangster whose influence was spreading like a disease.
But you know how it does. No king reigns forever. As Rehman's grip started to weaken, the old guard got sloppy, and that created a vacuum. And in the underworld, a vacuum gets filled fast. New, hungrier gangs started popping up, ready to fight for the peace of the city, and that sparked an all-out war for control.
And this whole conflict basically kicked off because of two men. On one side, you have Faizu Mama. He was a transport businessman, a distant relative of Rahman, who paid him a monthly fee for protection. On the other side, you've got Arshad Papu. He was a ruthless newcomer who saw Rahman's weakness as his big opportunity. He wanted to be the new boss, and he wanted Faizu Mama's money.
And things escalated fast. I mean, shockingly fast. Arshad Papu calls Faizu Mama with a simple demand. From now on, you pay me. Faizu Mama refused. So in response, Papu didn't just send a warning shot. He had Faizu Mama kidnapped and murdered. And then, and this is the key part, he publicly announced that he did it. He was sending a brutal message to the whole city. Defy me, and you're next.
Arshad Papu's violent takeover didn't just end the story, it set the stage for an even bloodier chapter. The murder of Faizu Mama lit a fire for vengeance in his son, a man who would soon become the most feared name in Karachi's entire history, Uzair Baloch.
So right as this rivalry is boiling over, Rehman Dacoit, the old Don, gets killed in a police encounter. Suddenly Lyari has no leader. A massive power vacuum opens up. And who steps into that void? Uzair Baloch. And he is driven by one single, all-consuming goal: revenge for his father's murder.
Now, Uzair didn't just take over. He created a criminal enterprise on a whole other level. He had specialized teams for everything: a crew for collecting money, a firing squad for his enemies, and even a team just to manage his connections with the police. But his real trump card? He built powerful connections with the People's Party, a major political force in the country. And that made him virtually untouchable, even with over 200 criminal cases filed against him.
It got to the point where people were so terrified they were afraid to even speak his name. Lyari wasn't just a neighborhood anymore. It became the Lyari Kingdom. It was a place where every business, every building, every single person operated only with his permission. In his kingdom, there was only one law. Whatever was there below said, goes.
And now it was finally time for his revenge. What happened next is almost too brutal to even imagine. Uzair's men, with some help from corrupt police, captured Arshad Papu. They dragged him into the streets of Lyari, tortured him, and then, in a final, horrific act of dominance, they cut off his head and played football with his body as the crowd watched. This wasn't a movie scene. This was real life in Karachi.
This level of extreme violence, combined with all the other crime happening across the city, finally reached a breaking point.
The government was facing immense pressure from the public, from the media. They were finally forced to take decisive action to try and take their city back.
The problem was, the city was completely fractured. You had Uzair Baloch ruling Lyari with an iron fist. In the city center, a major political party, the MQM, was running its own parallel system of control through violence and extortion. And the state itself, well, the police and rangers were basically just another armed group competing for a piece of the pie.
So by 2013, something had to give. This was the turning point. The government launched the Karachi operation, and they unleashed the paramilitary rangers with full authority to clean up the city, no matter who stood in their way.
And the operation was massive. Raids started kicking off on gang hideouts and political party offices alike. Target killers, street criminals, they were all getting rounded up. Uzair Baloch, who had fled the country, was eventually arrested in Dubai and brought back. And the MQM's infamous headquarters, a place called 90, was shut down, with huge stashes of illegal weapons found inside.
So on the surface, the operation looked like a huge success. The reign of the street dons was over. But as the dust started to settle, a new, much more subtle form of power began to emerge. And this is the story of the new mafia in suits.
And you know what? For a while, it really seemed like Karachi was finally at peace. The daily target killings, the brazen extortion demands, that stuff did stop. The entire city breathed a massive, collective sigh of relief. The old dons were finally gone.
But that leaves us with an essential question. The gangsters were gone, the guns were silent. But did the crime actually stop? Or did it just change its clothes?
And the answer reveals a deeper truth about how power really works. Crime didn't end, it evolved. The gun was replaced by the pen. Extortion by threat was replaced by money made through paperwork and approvals. The street gangs in their torn clothes were replaced by office mafias in luxury suits. Today, a whole new set of mafias have taken over. They don't control street corners. They control the city's essential resources. You've got the water tanker mafia, deciding who gets water and at what price in a city that's constantly short of it. The land-grabbing mafia seizes property with forged documents. Powerful real estate players, and even some in the media, manipulate the entire system for their own profit.
And here's the thing, it all appears legal. The crime isn't happening out in the open anymore, it's happening inside fancy offices, through digital bank accounts, and official-looking paperwork. But behind that facade, the system is exactly the same. It's still for sale to the highest bidder.
And this leaves us with a final, really nagging question. The faces have changed, and the weapons have been swapped out for briefcases. The criminals wear suits now. But if the same systems of power, pressure, and profit are still in place, has anything truly changed? And you have to wonder, is this new, hidden corruption even more dangerous than the old one?